I really hate this retcon. The Missing Children's Incident, or MCI as it's usually referred as, is when William got bored and decided to grab some XP from some low-level humans. It is what it is, you gotta do what you gotta do. I don't really have an issue with it, but unfortunately, it ain't perfect. The problems start when you introduce the posters that go along with it. As most of us know, FNAF was meant to be a standalone game, so many of the things that spawned from that game have been tweaked and altered as time has gone on, such as the significance of the kids in question. Originally just random kids that get put to sleep with no importance other than them possessing the animatronics, to now hotly debated points of contention within the fandom. We're not even certain if characters like Gold and Freddy have one spirit or two. However, during my last video speculating when and how William Afton would be taken by the entity and thrown into Dead by Daylight later this year, if he would be thrown in at all, I briefly went over the MCI, William, and those goddamn posters, leading to me mentioning that I just assume a random Fazbear employee took the fall for William, since if we take this at face value, it doesn't make any sense. So today I'm here to toss you all who also really hate these 4 posters a bit of salvation, something to explain away this retcon and maybe unretcon it in the process. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Wage Theory. Hit the subscribe button. And before any of this truly gets going, I first gotta say, I get it. In Help Wanted 1, it says nothing was ever proven in a court of law, but that's complete bullshit since he wouldn't have been convicted in the first place if nothing was proven. The most common explanation for this is that Scott misused the word convicted and should have instead used charged, which sure, fine, whatever, but an in-universe explanation for this could easily be chalked up to Fazbear Entertainment lying to save their own ass. Kind of like how they blatantly lie to you in another game over screen saying, Faz fact, animatronics can't kill you. Security Breach would say otherwise. Ruin would say otherwise. Tales from the Pizzaplex would say otherwise. What are you on about, Fazbear Entertainment? Another blatant lie is Faz fact, these are completely fictitious scenarios, which we know at least isn't 100% true since at the start of the game, we're told that all of Scott's games were loosely based on actual events.
And while it's true that some stories associated with our name were loosely based on
Nightmare Fredbear? As to how much of this was fictitious, I have no clue. But seeing as how shady Fazbear Entertainment has been in the past, lying to the player is not out of the picture. According to the posters, they had video evidence of this happening. The only issue in my mind is that they couldn't pin who was under the mask, and that is where this theory comes into play. As I was rendering my previous video, it dawned on me that William was most likely wearing a full suit, and we once again gotta remember Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is basically Chuck E. Cheese, meaning there are multiple employees on the payroll that could potentially be a culprit. Why is this important, you may ask? Because there is a very serious question these theoretical authorities have to ask themselves when trying to pin a culprit to the child-ending furry. The question is, who's that furry in the golden Bonnie suit? And while yes, I absolutely still stand by the explanation that it's just a random employee who gets caught in the crossfire, because in all seriousness this is still just a really fat retcon, but what really makes me latch on to this explanation is how Fazbear Entertainment treats their employees. It is no secret that in Fazbear Entertainment you are expendable. Let's just take a moment to remember how Fazbear Entertainment views the mortality of their employees. In FNAF 1, they literally say, hey bro, if you die while on the job, we'll wait a bit to hide all the evidence, clean the building, and then send out a missing persons report because you're insignificant. In FNAF 3, you hear them literally tell their employees that in the event of a spring lock failure, one of the most brutal and agonizing fates that can befall you in the FNAF series, to please go to a designated room out of sight before you bleed out because it would really disturb the customers.
In case that the spring locks come loose while you are wearing a suit, please try to maneuver away from populated areas before bleeding out, as to not ruin the customer experience.
They'd rather tell you all of this and even train you in what to do if this happens instead of making a suit design that won't kill you. Seeing as how little Fazbear Entertainment cares about its employees and how they're willing to literally destroy evidence in the event of your death, willingly put you in a ticking time bomb of a suit for hours on end knowing damn well moisture will be the death of you, willingly put you up against dangerous animatronics, and we know they know they're dangerous sense because the bite of 87 would not have been mentioned if they were unaware. And on top of all of that, they pay you scraps for your hard work. Bro, just put the fries in the bag at that point. If they do all of this, how unbelievable is it that they'd also legally throw you under the bus to save their own ass as well? Especially when the head of the shady business is the one who needs saving. I mean, they threw Scott under the bus at the start of Help Wanted 1 by calling him a lunatic, and then followed up by saying, lawsuits pending.
Were total fabrications. Complete lunatic. Lawsuits pending.
They are not above this shit, and it's completely in character for them to do so. Need I mention how they literally give you a certificate of insanity in the insanity ending of FNAF 6 to effectively silence you, since if you're labeled as crazy, nobody will believe the wild shit you're about to tell them. Some other people believe Henry was framed for this, but my only issue with this is that Henry just would not get out in time for FNAF 6. I've seen some people take it a step further and say, oh, but what if Henry got freed in between games, or he was released, or maybe Michael helped him out or something, and, you know, showed evidence over the years of tracking down William Afton. And this would also explain why he's been missing for all these years as well. So why do I have an issue with this? Well, my curious little candle, it's because there is nothing to even imply any of this. We'll go over the evidence in a second, but does Michael even formally know Henry? During his speech, he says, "And to you, my brave volunteer." I feel like if you're about to burn the building down with everyone inside of it, even feeling confident this said volunteer wants to die in the flames with you, you'd address them by name if you know them. I've seen some people genuinely suggest Michael could have theoretically helped Henry be released early by providing all the evidence he's witnessed over the years of tracking down William, but there is no actual tangible proof that A, he got arrested, B, Michael ever interacts with this man to begin with, and C, he got released early from said incarceration. It is too great of a leap in logic with too little proof to say any of this happened. And before someone brings up some paragraph in a FNAF book I either haven't read or overlooked, do keep in mind that we're talking about the games, and while some elements may be shared between the two continuities, they are not the same, such as Book Henry having 2 kids instead of 1. FNAF 6 is pretty much the only game where we get any semi-concrete information on Henry, and it doesn't really give much of anything supporting he gets framed. I know in his speech there's the "a wound first inflicted on me" line that some people try to tie to him being framed for the MCI, but wouldn't that heavily damage what little character this man has? I know that's not a very good defense, but it just doesn't feel right. The first inflicted on me part just feels better when we're talking about Charlotte's death, because we very much suspect, thanks to the very next line of this speech, Henry is most likely referring to the 5 sleeping kids during the MCI when he says,
"But then one that I let bleed out to cause all of this."
This line is important because, in context with the MCI, it kind of really did cause all of this. No sleeping kids means no possessed animatronics, no possessed animatronics means no remnant means no undead Will or Mike, and the insanity that is the true nature of the Funtime animatronics and pretty much every animatronic currently present, with the exception of maybe Lefty and his unwilling luggage, no longer exists. If the first line is changed to refer to him being convicted and possibly being let go later, and the second line refers to the sleeping kids and William's research, then it just makes Henry seem like a trash father. Oh damn, my girl's gone, but these fucking court cases can go to hell. It just doesn't seem right. And while yes, Henry could sure as hell be charged with criminal negligence for Fredbear's nibble of 83, seeing as how Michael shoved Crying Child in without even intending to kill his little brother, I really doubt that this first line is in reference to that, since William isn't even involved. That is, if Henry got charged to begin with. And then there's the second line, which you could possibly interpret as, by not stopping him before he killed Charlotte, he by proxy started all of this when Charlotte gave life to the animatronics, which also brought William's remnant research into existence, and, well, you see where I'm going. But then that breaks the timeline even more, because to my knowledge, Charlotte was the first kill, so how do you stop somebody who hasn't done anything wrong yet? Henry theoretically being arrested would technically work for the first statement, but would completely undermine Henry as a character in my opinion, and would pose the even bigger question of when and how did he get out if he was eventually let go? And when we start talking about that, at least in the game's timeline, we start crossing over into pure fanon, with zero proof for any claims made on the subject. So what's a lore-friendly, character-upholding, and very believable explanation for this little retcon? Just say an employee took the L. However, that is all we have for today. Hit the subscribe button, follow my socials, and get out of my house.